Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you've been following my channel, you know that I am working on all kinds of electric power sport equipment, including kids ATVs, stand-on scooters, mobility scooters for elderly people, well, all kinds of power sport equipment. So if you have any problems with your machine, maybe you will have an answer on my channel, because I have over 200 videos how to diagnose and how to replace this and that part. On today's video I have a 2024 Model Q ATV made by Rosso motors. This one is 1200 watts of power. And by the way, if you have a previous generation ATV which is 1000 watt of power, you can always upgrade your machine, make it more powerful if you buy motor and the controller from 2024 model, and you can have up to 25% more power. Now this video is about how to replace rear drive axle, this one. For example, if your machine is brand new but there was some kind of shipping damage, you need to replace that axle because you will have excessive wobbling on the wheels. Or if your machine is used and you having problem with the grinding noise on bearings that are inside of this housing, this video will be helpful for you to see how to get to those bearings. And for those people that planning to replace brake disc or a sprocket, this is also very good video. Now, before you start working on an ATV, especially on a drive chain, I strongly recommend to remove keys from the ignition, because in most cases your kids will be around you and they will accidentally turn on the key, twist the handle, and who knows, maybe your fingers will be close to the drive chain, to the sprocket, and you might get injured. So remove the key, or even better, unplug your battery plug. This way your kid will not be able to start it with the remote. Okay, now this procedure will involve some tools, and this is all of the tools that I'm going to use, and I'm going to explain you step by step what needs to be done. Now the first what you have to know is that your ATV is equipped with the drive chain and the sprocket, which is behind this plastic cover. For some people it was, you never knew about that component because it's fully enclosed, especially on a newer model, but it is actually underneath of this plastic. So you have to remove this plastic, and after you remove the plastic you will have full access for the chain, for lubrication, and for the adjustment. So let's do with basic. Let's start with basic. Let's remove this plastic cover. You need a Phillips screwdriver and the Allen wrench to remove a couple of those screws, including one right here. Now after I remove those screws, you're gonna have total in 6 of them, 3 with the Allen wrench and 3 with the wooden screw type. You might ask why I am starting with this procedure, that I can actually do it later on. Well, I'm removing this first so I can be closer to those 2 nuts on this axle. Otherwise, because I'll be holding with a wrench, otherwise the wrench will be too close to the plastic cover, so I don't want to damage it. So that's why I'm removing it first. Now I have a full access to those 2 nuts and those 2 on this side. For this I'm going to use this type of a tool, like a crescent wrench, or like this one, or a regular 32mm spanner. Now this second nut is actually locking the first one, so you have to remove the locking nut first, and in order to do so you have to either hold this nut right here, or hold it from this side. So it's up to you how you're going to do it. You can always hold the entire shaft if you wish so, and that's why I left ATV still on the ground instead of lifting it up. So because I want to remove those two nuts first, I'm going to have a better control and the ATV is going to be more stable. Now when my wrench is against the floor, I can even push it with my foot and try to remove it that way, or I will be removing by holding just one second, by holding with one hand here and another one is here. By the way, when I'm doing this way, the wrench is going to go against the asphalt or pavement, and all I need to do is basically it goes really freely. Now I'm not sure if it's visible on the camera or not, but factory applied red thread locker glue, and maybe in your case it will not spin so freely. I can see very little residue of that glue, not too much, but it's still visible. So maybe the second nut will be coming off much harder than the first one. So actually it's going okay. Okay, well, if that nut is going to come out really hard because there was too much glue, here's my advice. I know that not everyone is going to use this advice because not everyone is having torch at home, but you will need to torch this thread so that red liquid, which is a glue, is going to melt and this nut will come off much easier. Now I am basically ready to lift up my ATV and put on a jack stand. But before I do that, I need to loosen this chain because the chain is pretty tight. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my ATV on a standing position. Just like this. Now those 4 nuts must be loose. 1, 2, 3 and 4, and this one, those 2 chain tensioners, they also must be loose in order for the motor to drop down, so the chain will be more loose, that I can remove it freely. So from the inside, you're gonna have 2 bolts with the Allen head. So you will need the Allen head wrench, the same one that I've been using for removing the chain cover, and I'm going to hold it from the inside, and from the outside it's a 10mm wrench. So let's do it. Okay. So you don't have to remove those nuts completely, you just have to make them loose so the motor will go down. Okay, like 4 turns on each nut. Okay. Now, after those 4 nuts are loose, I'm going to loosen those 2 tensioners also by couple turns, maybe 3-4, until I see that motor goes all the way down and the chain will be more freely, just as you see, it's flapping freely. Now I'm ready for lifting up my ATV and put on a jack, just like this. Now the next step is removing protective rubber cap and removing cotter pins. In some cases you will need the pliers to remove those cotter pins. Now next step is removing this castle nut, which is a 23mm socket. I'm going to use my impact gun for a faster removal. Now there is a washer. This washer is basically only holding this rubber cap. There is a special groove inside, so that's why you see this washer. Other than that, this nut can easily hold entire wheel. Now when you're going to install it back, pay attention to the wheels. Don't mix them left to right, because it's possible to install them to the wrong side and you will have reverse thread, so the arrow will be facing backwards instead of forwards. So now the next step is doing the same on the opposite side. Now after the wheel is removed, it's time to remove this chain, but be careful. Do not put your finger between the chain and the sprocket, because you might injure yourself. So take a screwdriver or a little wrench and put inside and spin those axle. Maybe I should put a wheel back in place, so it's going to help me to spin backwards. Just like this. As you can see, I'm just using tool instead of my finger. Okay, the wheel is off. I can remove this chain and leave it there for now. Now next step is removing brake caliper. There is only two bolts, Allen head bolts, which is 5mm Allen, and one here on the top and one on the bottom. I'm not sure if the camera is going to show you because the frame is black. Maybe it's too dark, and the bolts are black. So let's remove those. Yeah, tiny screws are in black color. Maybe on your ATV it's going to be silver, but it is black in mine. So once you remove those two screws, the caliper will slide out. You don't have to spread any brake pads, nothing like that. It will come off easy. Now is removing those two nuts and removing brake disc. It slides out from those splines. Now the next step is sliding out your axle that you're planning to replace. Now for those people that are planning to replace a sprocket or brake disc, if you're going to buy a brake disc, most likely it will not come with the flange, so you will have to reuse your original flange unless you buy it separately, because your flange splines are worn out. So if you look closely right here where my finger is, I'm going to put it right here where my finger is, you can see a residue from a red color glue. So it's really good that factory think about preventing those bolts from getting loose, but when it comes to removing those 4 bolts, it's not that easy because of that glue. So again, you have to reheat each bolt individually with a torch before you can remove it. Otherwise they will snap off and you will have to drill it out or buy a new flange and the 4 bolts. Same on this side with the same, you have to reheat each bolt individually. Now some people might say that why didn't I hold this shaft, just use some kind of tool against the bracket, metal bracket, and it will allow me to hold it in place, some kind of pry bar or something, to prevent from turning. I don't recommend that because this metal, it looks thick and strong, but in reality you can bend it easily. So I don't recommend it to hold this entire shaft with any kind of tool like this, because it's possible, I understand, there is lots of holes you can match, and you can hold this with the tool like this, but you 90% that you will bend this brake disc. So I rather see you holding the shaft with actual big wrench like this, or using actual, you know, spanner wrench on the opposite side. Okay, so now you know how to remove drive shaft, and here's your bearings right here, one on each side. By the way, for those people that planning to replace those bearings, those are generic single row bearings, number 6005 RS, which is you can find them literally anywhere. eBay, local store, probably under $4 or $5. Maybe better quality would cost you $10, but this is the most. When it comes to removal those bearings, well, if this is your case, that you are removing bearings because they've been making grinding noise, you don't have to worry because it's probably fell apart already. But you will need to remove the outer big race from this housing. So you will need some kind of punch, big hammer and screwdriver, so you can insert from the inside, and you will be hammering out actual inner race, outer race, whatever needed, and then gently hammer it back in place with a mallet so you don't damage new bearing. Well, that's it. Installing everything back in place, you don't have to worry about any kind of adjustments that you think if there is a nut you have to adjust it equal on both sides. Not really, don't worry about that. The actual flange will stop at this. Let me show you right here. The actual flange will stop right here where the splines ends, so you cannot over tighten it. You can make it loose, but you cannot over tighten it, and no matter how tight you're going to make it, it's not going to go any farther than it is. Everything is machined so precisely, measured so precisely, that you don't have to worry about. Now the previous models ATVs, yes, there was some adjustments, but that was on the ATVs made 5-7 years ago, I believe. So you had to adjust it equal on both sides, otherwise there will be misalignment between the actual sprocket and the motor itself. On this one you don't have to worry about nothing, just put everything back. If you have an option to apply that red thread locker glue, that would be great idea. Maybe at least blue color one if you have one at home. This will prevent those nuts from getting loose. But if you don't have that glue, and if you don't want to go to the store and buy it, it costs only like $4 or $5. Make it as tight as possible, especially the second nut, because this is your locking nut that's going to hold the first one. So make the first one tight. Tighten the first nut first as much as possible, and then lock it with your second nut. And then when it comes to installing your chain, you simply going to put your chain back in place and twist entire wheel and axle, and it's going to go back. Do not try to insert your fingers between the chain, you might get injured. Make everything tight, put everything back in place, tighten your chain. I have a dedicated video how to tighten that chain. I'm not going to go over here because this video is going to be way too long. Basically, you want to make it as tight as you'll be able to push with your finger between the, let's say, maximum of the quarter inch to half inch down. Let's say that, yeah. So when you will make it, otherwise it's going to be way too tight and you will not be able to push it down. This is how tight it's going to be. But I have a dedicated video about that. Just simply go on my channel, click on the playlist, and you will see a video about chain adjustment on a Model Q ATV. Model X will be exactly the same setup. Really convenient, really easy. Everything is after you put everything back in place, spin it with your hand, everything's supposed to go really smooth, everything's going to be aligned and without any grinding. You see how much little gap there is between the brake disc and the actual frame or swing arm, rear swing arm on this ATV, but this is how it's made, and you don't have to worry about that it's going to touch. Unless this brake disc was bent, then it's going to touch. Other than that, everything is made really precise. Well, this is it. Thank you guys, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'm going to make a few more videos about this particular model, and see you next time. God bless you, God bless America, Canada and Ukraine. Bye.